Sometimes I think that march in should have music. I don't know, Hail to the Chief or something. What do you think? Squid jigging ground, more like it. Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome. We're going to call the meeting of the public meeting of the Mount Pearl City Council, March 5th, 2013, to order. I see we've got ourselves a fine crowd here today, and that's going to result, obviously, in some presentations and things that are going to be made, which, quite frankly, we're looking forward to. The first thing would be the adoption of the agenda. I believe everybody should have it open and in front of them now. Accept the motion to adopt the agenda moved by Councillor Stoyle, seconded by Councillor Aker. Are there any other additions to the agenda other than those that I have one proclamation to sign? I have nothing else, though, at this point. Is there any other items to add to the agenda? Hearing none, I'll call it. All in favor? Aye. Contrary minded, motion is carried. Next item would be the minutes of the Public Council meeting of February 19th. Moved by Councillor Wall, seconded by Deputy Mayor Locke, that we accept the minutes as presented. Are there any errors or omissions to be identified? And again, this from the Public Council meeting of February 19th. Hearing none, we'll call it. All in favor? Aye. Contrary minded, motion carried. Business arising then would be the next item on the agenda, and that is, again, for the meeting of February 19th. If there's any business arising, Council, would you please identify it by the number attached on the left?
102, Your Worship.
Councillor Aker.
Yeah, I just want to inform Council.
What number was that again?
102, the Newfoundland Labrador Housing and Homelessness Network. Got a card the other day from Kim Yetman Dawson with the Housing Network. She wanted to thank the city, especially the city staff who organized the pancake breakfast here. Those who participated, and especially QP Local 1099 who participated, and she just wanted me to pass on that message. So I just want to table that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other business arising? Again, business arising, hearing none. Obviously, Paul Lane, we still miss you.
Yeah. It would always take an extra 10 minutes.
Right. Recognize that we're going to recognize that the MHA from Mount Pearl South is here, going to be doing a presentation now in a minute. But when he sat on this council, he took great delight in seeing to it that business arising was business arising. And we sometimes used to laugh at the fact that he would redo the meeting of last week, this week, before we started the new one. We used to say to him, but welcome back to the chamber, Paul. Always a pleasure. The next item would be for us then actual proclamations and presentations in council. Today, we are going to be reading into the record and signing a proclamation recognizing Lymphedema Awareness Day. In the gallery with us this afternoon, I want to recognize Jean Ann Ryan, who is the nurse coordinator for this particular organization and event dealing with lymphedema, as well as two of our city residents who are with her today, who have been dealing with this issue. Miss Sonia Lehman is here. Hi, Sonia. Where are you gone? I thought I saw you in the back down there. And Rose O'Neill here as well. Hi, Rose. Okay, we're going to get all of you to come up here. All three of you to come up here. And Jean, we're going to get you to speak to this, but what I'm going to do first is read the actual proclamation into the record, okay? And then we're going to get you to speak to it, and you're going to get to use this fancy microphone here to do that. All right, so first we'll read it into the record and then sign it. The proclamation reads as follows. Whereas lymphedema is a debilitating condition characterized by an accumulation of lymphatic fluid that causes swelling in the arms, legs, or other areas of the body, and whereas patients suffering from lymphedema may struggle with pain and swelling and may experience financial and psychological strains due to the difficulties of managing their condition, which has the potential to cause severe infections or loss of the use of limbs. And whereas, while there are cases of primary lymphedema that are inherited, most lymphedema cases are developed as a result of an infection, a trauma, surgery, radiation therapy, or removal of lymph nodes. And whereas, because the removal of lymph nodes is typical in cancer-related surgeries, cancer survivors are especially susceptible to developing lymphedema. Whereas research about lymphedema has continued to grow, ensuring these patients receive the best possible care based best practice guidelines. And whereas the Atlantic Clinical Lymphedema Network, the Canadian Lymphedema Framework, and our local lymphedema support group promotes Lymphedema Awareness Day each year. happens on March 6th to recognize patients and to raise awareness about this condition and of the treatment options available to patients. Therefore, I, Mayor Randy Sims, do proclaim March 6, 2013 as Lymphedema Awareness Day here in the city of Mount Pearl. And I'm going to affix my signature to that proclamation, Jean Ann, and if you would, I'm going to get you to address council and tell us about your Awareness Day and what activities you may have planned.
So thank you for having us here this afternoon. As Mayor said, I am the lymphedema coordinator with the Eastern Region, and Sonia and Rosalie are wonderful supporters of this program, and also they themselves have had issues with lymphedema in the past. We have organized some events in recognition of this day, which is an international day, and what we have done, we've had, of course, the proclamation, and we have a booth set up at the Health Science Center tomorrow that will be manned with healthcare professionals and patients all day, providing information and an education to the public about lymphedema, increasing awareness. And we also have a walk, 5 o'clock tomorrow at the Works. So we are meeting in the lobby of the Works, and it is our first walk for Lymphedema Awareness Day. And thank you very much for having us here.
Well, thank you very much, Jean. I'm going to just present this to you now then. We'll do that. You can have the copy. Thank you very much. Sonia, good to see you, dear. Thank you. Rosalie, good to see you, too. Thank you. Do we want to do anything other than that? You good? Okay. Thank you, guys. I'm going to call on Councillor Paula Tessier. Councillor, you wanted to address this particular proclamation and some other news.
Yes, no, lymphedema actually is a condition that I'm very familiar with as well in my other life with breast cancer. And I know that Jean Ann does yeoman service with people who are dealing with lymphedema in their lives. It can be a very significant challenge daily, and especially after, in my case with the women that I deal with breast cancer. So I want to commend Jean Ann for her incredible service to the people who suffer from lymphedema. She has been an extraordinary advocate and champion for everybody who suffers with this condition. She's actually going to be attending our retreat in May to facilitate a session once again, and it's highly attended, very popular, and she just does exceptional work, and I thought it was very important that we highlight that. Thank you.
Thanks, guys, very much. Thank you, Councillor, again. Council, the next order of business then is to once again introduce our MHA, Mr. Paul Lane, from the MHA for Mount Pearl South. Mr. Lane is with us today for a pretty important duty that he's about to perform. He is going to be presenting a Queen's Diamond Jubilee Medal today to one of, I think, our most revered and honored citizens, and a man I'm delighted to say I think each and every one of us would call him a friend. And that, of course, is to Mr. Richard Levangier. So, Paul, if you would, I'm going to get you to come up here. It's probably best. Maybe use this microphone. And, okay, you want to do it that? No, come around. Come around. Do it this way. And I'll get out of your way. Let you be the mayor. How's that?
There you go.
There you go.
Thank you, Your Worship. And I've never met a microphone I didn't fall in love with, I got to be honest. Your Worship, members of Council, certainly former colleagues, senior staff, ladies and gentlemen, it's certainly my pleasure to be back in the chamber. And, it's still kind of strange to me sitting on the other side looking forward after spending, as everybody around this table knows, I spent 8 years of my life dedicated to this chamber and all the work surrounding it, and it was certainly an honor and a pleasure, and I do still miss it. Although I really enjoy my new role, I still do miss it. And may I just say that you guys are doing a great job here for the citizens of Mount Pearl. I speak as a citizen as well as MHA. Your Worship, certainly as an elected official, as we all know, we have many opportunities to be engaged in many activities throughout our community. Certainly as the MHA from Mount Pearl South, I've had the opportunity to be involved in many things, met many people. And, some days are wonderful and some days are not so wonderful. And I guess that's just political life and that's just what public life is all about. But today I certainly do have an honor here to bestow upon one of our finest citizens. And before I speak to that, Your Worship, I just want to make note, now that we are here, we're televised, that this is actually the second Queen's Diamond Jubilee medal which I have presented. I presented a medal just before Christmas to a long-time member of our community, a long-time educator, long-time community volunteer, and former Citizen of the Year. That would be Lion Gerald Coombs. And Gerald is certainly likewise a very deserving person, and I did want to mention that as well. But what brings me here today, as you've indicated, is we have another member of our community who I think, without doubt, is very, very deserving of this honor. And this gentleman has been involved in our community for many, many years. He's been, I guess, most known through his involvement with the Kinsman Club of Mount Pearl. But not only was he a leader in Mount Pearl on the local level, but he was also a leader in the regional level and a leader on the national level as well. And his accomplishments in Kin are certainly unrivaled by anybody that I know involved in that organization. Also an individual who has served our city well in terms of he was a former chair of the Mount Pearl Frosty Festival for at least a couple of years, maybe more. He was the chair when I was involved in it, for sure. He's involved with the Park Place Board of Directors, and very much involved with Mount Pearl Citizen of the Year program as well. He's emceed it for many years. Your Worship, you know, we're so fortunate in the city of Mount Pearl to have such wonderful volunteers in our community who give so selflessly of themselves to our community. Particularly here in Mount Pearl, we see that on a daily, a weekly, a monthly basis. And this particular individual is a person who, over the years, I've said to him, actually, I said, you know, come on, Richard, you know, I think we need to put your name forward for Mount Pearl Citizen of the Year, because I think he would be a very worthy recipient and certainly deserves that nomination. But of course, because of his involvement with the Kinsman Club, because the Kinsman Club were involved actually in that particular ceremony, that nomination process, he always respectfully declined. So when the opportunity came forward here with the Queen's Diamond Jubilee, I said, well, buddy, there's no excuse this time. And this time you're going to get your rightful due. I know he doesn't do it like all volunteers. We do things for our community because we love our community, we love the people in our community, and that's why Richard does it. But I think it's always important to acknowledge those efforts, and that's what we're going to do today. So, with no further ado, I'm going to ask Richard Lavanier to come forward, and we're going to try to pin this medal on him. I'm going to try not to stick him with it. I have to be honest with you, my eyes are not very good. I'm actually to a point now where my arms are not long enough to read the telegram anymore, and I have to start wearing glasses, but I refuse to do it. But anyway, we're going to give it a try.
I'm afraid of needles.
So I guess what you guys. I never got him so far. And of course, along with this, Your Worship, there's also a certificate here that comes with it as well, and it's signed by the Governor General of Canada. And I'll present that to you, Richard. There you go.
Okay.
And if anybody wants to get a snap, now's the time. Okay.
For those of you that notice I'm not lifting my arms, I can't. Anyway, thank you. If I might, Paul. Yes, if I might. We do live in an excellent city when it comes to, I hear volunteers, and they're everywhere in Mount Pearl, everywhere. And to get an award like this, it goes to me, but it belongs to a whole lot of people I work with. Can I throw a challenge? Love to. All young people, do what we do. Volunteer. It is tremendous. You'll enjoy it. Get involved. And to everybody, thank you, thank you, thank you, and thank you, Paul.
I'll take you.
Thank you, Paul. Congratulations, Richard. I know there are several of us now in this room that have had the honor of having one of those medals pinned on us. I got to be honest with you, I can think of no one more deserving than you. And your message is very timely, always important. We're very close now to celebrating once again our Volunteer Week, when volunteers from all across the country will hopefully get some of that recognition they so rightfully deserve and so seldom ever anticipate that they will receive. And, congratulations to you and to yours. Job well done. With that, our next item is dealing with a presentation really involving the Waterford River Cleanup Blitz. And I'm going to invite Councillor Dave Aker to actually address this for us. Councillor Aker, if you would.
Thank you, Worship, and to Council. It gives me great pleasure today to announce that on May 25th, which is a Saturday, we're going to be holding the third annual, the 2013 Waterford River Cleanup Blitz here in Mount Pearl. And I want to acknowledge some people we have here today who've helped us in the past, as well as joining us today, who will kickstart the campaign for this year. These are key people in the past, and I'd like to introduce and invite these people to come up, please, to be recognized. And we'll get a picture after I finish speaking, I guess. I'd like to welcome Bill Stoyles of the Waterford Valley Rotary Club to the chamber. Bill, is Bill there? There he is.
Yeah, he's here.
Come on up,
Bill.
Come on up.
You got to get your
his
snap
worship
took.
might be the best place to go. Yeah. It's a pleasure to also have Sarah Halliday, president of the Munn Rotaract team. Sarah, welcome. We also have Karina Crocker, who's the chair of the board of directors of the Conservation Corps of Newfoundland and Labrador, and one of our founding partners with the Cleanup Blitz. Hi, Karina. This year, the Mount Pearl Men's Softball League is going to be pitching in too with the Cleanup, Your Worship. We have Wally Westcott here. You like that?
Yeah, that's
Thank you.
very good,
Yeah.
Councillor.
And I believe there are two members of the league who still play softball, two of the founding members of the league. Wally is one of those people. And Wally, I'd like to welcome you to the chamber. If you'd come up and join us for a picture, please. And in addition, we have Mr. Chess Pike. Chess is the president of the Mount Pearl Lions Club. And they were very instrumental last year as well in organizing the Blitz as well as carrying it on. Council, we had last year, we had some 60, 65 volunteers to help out with the Waterford River Cleanup Blitz. This year, we're hoping to, hey Bill, we're hoping to grow that. This year, our goal is, Your Worship, to try to have as many as 100 members to help us participate. Members of the community groups, from the nonprofit sector, from businesses, as well as community leaders. We're going to start here at City Hall around 10 o'clock in the morning. The idea is then to walk down to the river, basically with our shovels, with our bags, with our rubber boots and our gloves. The city will provide a lot of the gear that we need. I want to recognize in attendance today the internal champion, and no stranger to anybody, a fellow who works in the Planning and Development Department, Mr. Don Kelly. Don will be the coordinator this year for the Waterford River Cleanup Blitz internally. And I also want to make mention of Monica Storch, who worked with the city for a number of years. And she certainly set a great standard, a great example for Don to follow in organizing the Blitz the last 2 years. So for 2 years in a row, we've been cleaning up the river. And in addition to that, we've also submitted an application with the Conservation Corps of Newfoundland and Labrador for a green team to be working on the river. Although that's not approved, we're hoping to partner with the Conservation Corps, as is the Chamber of Commerce, the Mount Pearl Paradise Chamber of Commerce. We're hoping to have a second team if we can get through some paperwork, I guess, to get that approved. And the idea basically would be to focus on the commercial industrial areas in the city around the Donovan's area, the Kenmount Business Park, as well as Topsail Road. Basically, we consider ourselves to be the steward of the river. We're trying to promote environmental action and basically create and maintain what is really the gem within our community. It's a natural gem that's there for everybody, and unfortunately, sometimes it's a little hidden. And sometimes that's where all the garbage and all the mess and the dirt, how it builds up, right? So in summary, basically, we're looking forward to another energetic year. If we can get 100 volunteers, we may start at Park Place, Your Worship. and work our way up the river and have a reception here at City Hall. So that would be the goal. And I'd like to welcome, these are our champions, our partners this year in the Waterford River Cleanup Blitz. Thank you for coming, guys.
Thank you, guys. Don't go anywhere. Don't go anywhere. All right, we're gonna get you all out front.
We're all going to go for
We're gonna get you all out front.
We're going to go up for a picture now, if we could.
Who's the president?
Dennis Rousel.
Come on, Dennis.
Yes. Don Kelly. Don.
Come up here with us, Dennis. We're gonna get all of you guys to stand down there. All right. All right. Any account, if there's an elected councilor in the facility, come up here. There are a couple. All right, how do you want to do this now? This is you decorating here. Bring them all. Thank you, Councillor Aker, and thank you, everybody. The Waterford River has been a little bit of a passion for us in the last few years. We very much wanted to see if we couldn't at some point have a brag. I don't know that we're there yet. I don't know that we're awfully close, I think. Maybe after this particular summer we'll have that brag, which is we wanted to say we had the cleanest urban river in the country. That's what we want to achieve. Now, last year I walked with those good folks from MUN cleaning up the river. They're much faster than I am. And last summer we did, yeah. The Rotarax, yeah. They walk way too fast. You can't keep up with that crowd at all. So then I ended up, I gave that up and I decided I'd go with Paul Lane. But Paul Lane thought that he was fishing and I was his bait. So I ended up at a couple of occasions out in the river trying to get a few things. What we found surprising, and I think our MHA would agree, because we made the comment when we actually concluded, is we never had near the garbage there was the year before. You know, there's an awful lot of good work that's been done and is being done. But ultimately, at the end of the day, the goal is, let's not just brag about it, let's make it the truth, that we have the cleanest urban river in the whole country. And I think between ourselves, between the City of St. John's and the Town of Paradise, I think that's quite achievable, and that's what we're setting out to do. So all of you people, thank you for that, because your volunteer activity makes that happen. All right, with that having been said, anybody else have a comment on any of that before we actually try and get into the real agenda? Okay, I'm going to let you people know something. It gets really boring right now. And if you wanted to, this is your time to bail. I'm just saying. Okay? We'll give you a minute. Thank you so much, guys. And we'll just give it a second here because all right, we'll call the meeting back to order again then. Council, first committee report today will be Public Works. Councillor Walsh, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. I appreciate that. I have just one item that I need to report on today, and I've done this for every public meeting for the last several months, and that, of course, is a little update on our winter cleanup and the conditions in the city at this time of the year. I have to say, and I think I said this before, I'm starting to get a complex. Every time I start to speak, the room empties. I'm not going to sing. I'm just going to speak. So it's all good, though. They were a tremendous presentation. I think very, very well deserved, and it was great to see such a tremendous crowd in the gallery as well. They're always at the beginning for the proclamations and special presentations, but you're right. After that, the meeting starts to get a little humdrum as we get down to the business.
It kind of goes downhill. Kind of goes downhill from there.
It does indeed.
Yeah.
Your Worship, as everyone is fully aware, and you don't need me to tell you that, winter conditions still prevail, although we've been experiencing, a couple of days of milder weather, which has been great. Someone described spring in Newfoundland a little while ago as 13 weeks of anticipation followed by 13 weeks of disappointment. Last year was an exception, and we're hoping that this year will be another exception as well. Just wanted to give you a little update, though, in terms of where we are. We've done a really good job in terms of cutting back our streets and widening the streets throughout the city. I think all streets have now pretty much been done, and our director has been sending out continuous reminders to me at least, and I think to council periodically as well, in terms of the area maps of the areas that have been cut back and widened. We're still grooming trails, and we've just a few weeks into winter, we actually tried to get at some of the trails. We didn't even attempt to do all the trails, but we did try to do the trails around Powers Pond and some of the trails on the trail bed. Some of the major pathways that families and families who are taking their pet out, etc., would probably enjoy, and ones that are accessible to the open spaces around Powers Pond, for example. Hydrant clearing is we have our UTM crews, Your Worship, out clearing the hydrants on an ongoing basis. But believe it or not, we have somewhere between 750 and 800 hydrants to clear. That's a lot of clearing. If we can get to these 2 or 3 times throughout the winter, particularly a winter like this year where we've had continuous snow week after week after week, it doesn't take but a single snowstorm to fill them in again. So, and of course, the way the hydrants are located on people's property, unless the residents clear them themselves, they blow snow into the area where the hydrants are. So even after a storm, as you clear your driveway, as you naturally do, sometimes we unintentionally fill in the hydrants a little more. I want to make a point about that. Any resident who has a hydrant abutting the property or on the front lawn, and they have the time and inclination, it will be tremendously helpful to our crews, and it might save a life, who knows, by having the hydrants cleared. So if they would just, especially if you have a snow blower, if you take an extra 5 minutes or 10 minutes, whatever would be required following a storm, to just clear out the hydrant, or even clear it out a little bit so that it's accessible. We do have them very visibly marked. Every single hydrant in the city is clearly marked. And I'm going to say something about fire response in just a few minutes. But it is really important. So we can't possibly get to them all after every storm, 750, 800 hydrants, but we do the best we can when we can. The last thing I want to mention prior to getting into a brief mention of our fire response systems is sidewalks. Now, Mount Pearl has been fairly well known for clearing sidewalks. In fact, we've been the envy of some. We still prioritize our sidewalk clearing, particularly in school zones and in public major arteries throughout the city, the main thoroughfares, bus routes, that sort of thing. We try to get to all of them as the conditions, snow conditions allow. This year, as you can appreciate, was a particular challenge. I want to mention one final thing, Your Worship, and that is fire attack and hydrants, and they're not unrelated, as you can appreciate. We had a fire very recently in our city, and of course there was an immediate 2-alarm fire, a response from the St. John's Regional Fire Department. They were there very, very quickly, and of course when they arrived there was a hydrant that was buried in snow. Just want to mention a couple of things. When these fire crews come out, whether it's summer or winter, but particularly this time of the year, they would never respond to a fire without a pumper being on the scene. What most people don't know, and I just want to take a minute to make sure that our council and the public who may be viewing are aware, when a pumper arrives on a scene and they access a hydrant, first of all, there are a number of firefighters that are there, usually as many as a dozen that respond. They have several shovels, and of course they can, within minutes, access a hydrant. We like to have them clear when and where it's feasible to do that, but of course we never know where and when a fire can occur. But the most important point is this. A pumper is filled with, I think, 500 gallons of water. And the first response from any fire will be from the pumper. When you run a hose from the hydrant, the hose doesn't directly fight the fire. The hose is attached to the pumper, so you can actually get pressure to fight a fire. So the first 500 gallons, by the way, folks, is a lot of water. If you put 500 gallons of water into any of our homes, that house, forget the fire, that house is pretty much ruined as a result of water damage. The first response is very often using foam, for example, and as a matter of fact, the fire that we had just a week or so ago on Nelda Drive, unfortunately, that was a fairly serious and legitimate fire. They didn't use the water from the hydrant at all. It was not required. There was sufficient water in the pumper if it was required. That was not required. What they used in responding to that alarm was foam. So just so that you, as members of council and the public, are aware, that's how a fire is fought. A building would pretty well be ruined by fire before you would pump 500 or more gallons of water into it. As you can you'd have an inferno, basically. So in the case of Nelda Drive, there was nobody in danger. We did have a pumper there. They did not use any of the water that was required from the hydrant. They used foam, and they got the fire under control, thankfully, very, very quickly. So I wanted to point that out. And as I said, where and when people can, if you can help clear a hydrant, we always like to have them clear, but it's not always possible at all times to have them perfectly clear. So I hope that clarifies a little bit in terms of the response for firefighting and how it's managed in this region. And maybe it also puts people a little bit more at ease. The one thing that's really, really important, if a marker on a hydrant happens to be missing, report it to us immediately, because we're not aware of a single hydrant in all of Mount Pearl that is not well marked. I was aware of one early in the year, and we actually made a call and forwarded an email, and the very next day, if not that same afternoon, a marker was erected on the hydrant. It's very important that we can locate them and identify them quickly. So if you happen to see one that is not marked and you know it's a hydrant there, please let us know. It's very, very important that we be aware of that. That's it for me, Your Worship. Thanks very much for the time.
Community Services Committee, Councilor Tessier.
Thank you, Your Worship. It looks like a long report, but it's really not. We've received a request from the Frosty Committee for the second installment of the Mount Pearl Frosty Festival grant for this 2013 Frosty Festival, and we are recommending that approval be granted for the release of $15,000 for the second installment of this operation grant, and I so move.
Moved, seconded by the Deputy Mayor. Question or comment? All in favor? As reminded, carried.
The second item, Your Worship, the Easter Day Camp will run from April 1st to the 5th for grades kindergarten to grade 6. Registration is ongoing at the Reed Center right now, so if anybody is interested in registering their child for that particular program, they should give the Reed Center a call during regular business hours, I'm sure. The next item, Your Worship, Community Services Department is now accepting applications from enthusiastic, creative, and energetic students, which we have an abundance of in Mount Pearl, for the following summer positions: day camp coordinators, day camp counselors, inclusion coordinators, inclusion counselors, summer event coordinators, summer event assistant, youth activity coordinator, youth activity leader, outdoor recreation coordinator, outdoor recreation counselors. Applications are available at City Hall. Job requirements, of course, are also available here, and they can also go online for it. I believe they're also available at the Reed Community Center and the Mount Pearl Swimming Pool. Deadlines for applications is April the 13th, so it's just a month away. Lots of great positions there that can be filled, and what a great summer job for somebody as well. I have no idea. Yeah, I have no idea.
Positions in total would be higher for students. Any idea, ballpark?
50. It's a great summer job. I know a friend of mine, her daughter has worked, well, now she's in her 20s, but she's worked a lot of summer jobs with the city of Mount Pearl and absolutely loved it. Loved every second of it. It's a great position to have. All right. Well, we also had a great example of exceptional volunteerism in Mount Pearl in the gallery today with Richard Levandia, of course, and when we were talking about the Waterford River cleanup as well. Volunteer Week, as we said, is coming up, and we're looking for nominations for Citizen of the Year. So we're asking people to nominate volunteers who contribute to the quality of our community life during the week of April 21st to the 27th. I want to recognize that in our gallery we actually have a former Citizen of the Year, Mr. Darren Reed. Welcome. Good to have you. So we're asking people, or the volunteer week is April 21st to the 27th, so we're asking for people to nominate some citizens, of course, and they can contact the Community Events Coordinator, Krista Tucker, at 748-1008, and that's always a ceremony that we always look forward to. We love hearing the accolades of people who work so hard to contribute to the positive quality of life of our citizens in Mount Pearl, so it's a great, great program. We're very pleased that we're successful in securing funding for a 6-month period from the Canadian Tire Jumpstart program in the amount of, get this, $12,270, placing 47 participants in a variety of programs here in Mount Pearl. That's an exceptional program for young people who would no longer, or who wouldn't have the means to participate in some sporting activities in the city. So we're really, really pleased with that program. We want to thank Canadian Tire and acknowledge them for that as well. And the deadline to submit nominations for the Focus on Youth Awards has been extended to Friday, March the 8th. We're encouraging all organizations to get actively involved and make nominations in as many categories as possible and help recognize our outstanding youth, their commitment to our community, their tremendous volunteerism. We've got a large number of young people in this city who are just pillars of our community, and they certainly make us feel like we're in good hands for the future. So, of course, nominations can be submitted. They can contact Gary Fraser at 748-1010 to make nominations for young people in this category. That's it. Thank you, Your Worship.
That concludes community services. We're moving on to corporate services. Deputy Mayor Locke.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just one thing on the Focus on Youth. It's so difficult to get young kids to nominate their friends. I know it working in the school system. Number of kids, and I know Councillor Walsh can speak to this as well, as his tenure as principal. But it's just getting the kids to take the time to acknowledge. We have dozens of kids here, and it's always a task to get people to nominate. So again, let's hope we can get some names out for this. All right, the first item, Your Worship, is a request for tax consideration. Committee is recommending approval to exempt the 2013 property taxes in accordance with our past practice and, of course, our policy for charitable organizations. So we have 3 listed there, and I move that these amounts be accepted as presented.
Moved by Deputy Mayor Locke, seconded by David Aker. Any question or comment? All those in favor? Contrary minded? Motion's carried.
The next item for me, Your Worship, is a request for financial support, and this comes from the Professional Municipal Administrators. Our committee is recommending approval for a contribution of $300 to be provided to the PMA's 41st Annual Convention and Trade Show being held at the Holiday Inn in St. John's, again, 2013 from April 17th to April 19th. And again, this is in keeping with past practice, and I so move.
Moved, seconded. All those in favor? Contrary minded? Motion carried.
Request for professional development and training from our Director of Community Services to attend the U.S. Indoors 2013 Facility Operators Conference and Trade Show. This, again, is in keeping with our policy for professional development and training. And, again, it's being held from May the 14th to the 16th in Las Vegas, Nevada, and I so move.
Moved, seconded. All those in favor? Contrary minded? Motion carried.
Next, Your Worship, is another request for professional development and training, this time from our Director of Planning and Development, to attend the annual Canadian Institute of Planners Conference 2013. This is being held in Vancouver from July the 6th to July the 9th, and I so move.
Moved, seconded. All those in favor? Contrary minded? Motion carried.
You weren't kidding about the humdrum bone dry, hey?
Oh,
It's like I'm in a big cathedral here. I'm hearing my voice coming back.
I gotta tell you, when it comes to boredom, we're the poster child.
There you
I'll
go.
tell you.
Yeah. I'll try to jazz this up a little bit.
Yeah. So why don't you
Next item, Your Worship, are
Why
the
don't you spend
invoices,
some real money?
The
Let's spend some
invoices
real
for
money.
council
Here you
approval.
go.
The invoices for council approval. We have 17 here that need to be paid, and they total $1,741,532.84, and I so move.
It has been moved and seconded. Any question or comment again on any of the invoices for approvals listed?
Some
1
big ones here,
through
Your Worship.
17. I see a big one there of over 1.2 million of that is obviously multiplex activity.
Absolutely, yeah.
$146,000 there dealing with the softball, new softball clubhouse. So we've got $123,000 on road salt. Yeah.
Nothing cheap there, is it?
Well, you know, sometimes we don't actually appreciate how much all of this stuff actually costs.
Yeah.
All right. Anybody got a question or comment? If not, we will call it. All those in favor, contrary-minded? Motion carried.
Thank you, Your Worship.
And that concludes that. We are off to Economic Development, Communication, Tourism. Councillor Stoyles.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just have one item today, Your Worship, and that is the annual report for planning development and economic development. This is a report, Your Worship, that we do every year, and of course it's compiled by our staff in the planning development department and economic development, and just wanted to highlight a couple of items in that report. By the way, this report is on our website, and anybody interested in obtaining a hard copy certainly can come to City Hall and obtain a copy of it as well. During 2012, the city hired consultant Porter Dillon to do a study on our transit service, and of course a lot of information was compiled, and we're in the process now of looking at how we're going to move forward over the next number of years in what we're going to be doing with our transit service, and especially our disabled service as well. Also, Your Worship, the city hired S.N. Lavinger to undertake a study of the Waterford River and the flood zone, and the report is compiled on that, and there was 5 different options, and of course we took a proactive approach in that, where we purchased a number of homes on the floodplain and the Waterford River, and especially after the past couple of days, an awful lot of people are certainly happy that they're not living down there with all that torrential rains that has taken place the past couple of days. And one of the neighbors actually down there moved up by me, and I've spoken to him, and he's delighted to be out of the floodplain area. Every time that there would be a flood, he couldn't leave his house for days before and after the flood, so he's quite happy to be out of that area, Your Worship. Also, Your Worship, the city did other studies on the commercial open space, and the annual business directory was compiled. Also, under economic development, Your Worship, there was 431 new jobs in the city, 90 new businesses opened, and we're delighted to see businesses come to the city. Economic development, under planning, there was 922 development permits issued in 2012. And again, Your Worship, this report is available on the website, and we're delighted to thank the department for all the hard work that they have put into this report. And that's it for me, Your Worship.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Very interesting and detailed report. Haven't gone through the entire thing, but once again, it's it indicates we're having a pretty good year, right? A lot of good work being done here in the city. Councillor Walsh.
Yeah, just want to mention, well, obviously it's great news, Councillor Stoyles, that so many fabulous things are happening, and of course the planning department takes in so many different facets of building and planning, development, communications, economic development. It's a fairly diverse department that does a lot of different things. One of the things that's noted in that report, Your Worship, that I wanted to mention is the fact that we employ in excess of 15,000 people, the businesses here in Mount Pearl.
In the city.
So that makes us clearly a net importer of work and workers, not a net exporter. And that, I think, is really worth noting. The fact that we have more than 15,000 people employed and working on a daily basis here in the city of Mount Pearl. I just want to underscore that, because sometimes some of the municipalities may get painted as being something other than that. More people come in here to work than actually leave to go out to work, and that's a good thing. Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Anybody else with a comment? We'll move on then. Engineering Services, Councillor Ledwell.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm going to talk this evening about all those big projects that we addressed when we were talking about all of the invoices for payment there earlier. I don't know that I can match the Deputy Mayor's musical report, but I'll do my best.
You can't rap it, you mean?
I can't rap, no. I can do a number of things, but I cannot rap.
Only Christmas time.
Only my wife would argue I can't even do it then, but we will try. The first item on our agenda this evening for engineering services is, of course, our favourite topic, that being the multiplex. Construction is currently ongoing, as we know. We're currently at 35% complete. Phase 4 of the geothermal well drilling is ongoing as we speak. The multiplex mechanical room foundation, the foundation work there, that's 100% complete, so we have that phase of the project complete. We also have the foundation for the fitness center just about complete at 80%, and of course the steel continues to go up, and as I was quoted last week as saying, it looks more like a building each and every day. Of course, with a project of this nature or this magnitude, you're bound to run into an issue or two as we go through the process. And with that, we have a change order in front of us this evening. It's related to the removal of some waste that was discovered underground as we moved through the construction process. It's to do with the removal of that waste, the replacement with the structural fill to make the site structurally sound to build on, and of course the transportation of that waste or unsuitable material to the regional landfill. The cost of that change order is $203,981.79, and it is the recommendation of the committee that we proceed with the approval of said change order, and I so move.
Moved, seconded by Councillor Stoyles. Any questions or comments? All those in favor? Contrary-minded, motion carried.
The second item on our agenda, Your Worship, is just an update on the softball building, the new complex that's being built down at the Team Guju complex. Of course, the construction work continues to be ongoing. The accessibility ramp and the parking stall work is happening as we speak. The interior work on the first floor, we have the floor tiles completed, and the kitchen and plumbing fixtures are going in. Stairwell to the basement is not quite complete, but we're getting there, and a lot of the paint and plastering and light fixtures are certainly nearing completion as well. We are still on target for a completion of spring in 2013. Certainly it'll be ready for the softball season to begin. And I do want to thank the softball league, the men's softball slow pitch league, for being so patient and being such a big part of the process. So their work has gone a long way with this, and certainly want to acknowledge their contributions to the project as well. That's it for us.
Thank you, sir, very much.
Can I ask a question?
Councillor Aker?
Yeah. There's some word amongst the softball community that the building may be turned over maybe in the next 2 or 3 weeks. And this would be late winter. I'm just curious, is that realistic in terms of the progress? I know it's almost ready. I guess basically we're just trying to determine, is it sooner rather than later? Just a rough date, please.
Councillor Aker, I would suggest that, within the next 2 to 3 weeks, we're probably nearing the point where we would be at completion and at that level of the project. We can't give an exact date at this point, but certainly we are getting to the end of that project.
So that would mean the building would be turned over to us at that point?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Planning and land use, Councillor Aker, you may as well stay on your feet.
Thank you, Your Worship. Very light agenda today, and after hearing the report on the activity last year of the Planning and Development Department, they've been really, really busy. But I can assure you, despite the light agenda, they are as busy as ever. So get ready next meeting.
Busy as little beavers,
busy
they are.
as little beavers. 16 Lynch Rose Place, Your Worship. We have an application for a second building on the lot, which ordinarily would not come to council, except that does require the approval of council in order for the mayor and the CAO to execute the proper paperwork. All of our development standards in this case have been met. The building, which is going to be used for a warehouse, is consistent with the light industrial zone. And there's also a requirement that the back building, which the second building, will match the building that's near the front of the lot. So I'd like to move that we give permission to staff to allow the second building on the lot, and I so move.
Moved, seconded by Councillor Ledwell. Question or comment? All those in favor? Contrary-minded, motion is carried.
All right, thank you. Development permit list from February 18th to March 1st. Permits numbers 8 through 11, and I so move.
Moved, seconded. All those in favor? Contrary-minded, motion carried.
Same period up to March 1st. Development permits, building permits, construction on the residential side of things is $334,000 and even. And the let me just see here now as I get my little iPad up and running. I may as well get the commercial on the same time. Total for the period for commercials, $8,225,000, and I'd like to move both, please.
Moved, seconded. All those in favor? Contrary-minded, motion carried.
That's it for me. Thank you.
That concludes the planning report. We have a notice of motion. Councillor Ledwell.
Thank you once again, Your Worship. Just a notice of motion we want to bring forward this evening. In accordance with Section 39 of the City of Mount Pearl Act 1988, take notice that, in accordance with Council's public notification policy, I will, at a regular meeting of Council, move an amendment to the Mount Pearl Development Regulations 2010 that, if enacted, will amend Map 1 Land Use Zoning Map as follows: rezone the property situated at 33 to 39 Municipal Avenue, 19 and 21 Delaney Avenue, and the rear portion of 14 Orchard Avenue from residential medium density to apartment use zone. The intention of this proposed amendment is to provide Council with the authority to consider a multi-story apartment building at this location.
Okay, thank you. Moving on, next item is new business in council. I usually mix this up, but today, with your permission, we're going to let Councillor Stoyles go first, because I think she's about to become Nanny Lou number 2 or 3. Number 3 now. So, Councillor Stoyles, you under new business. Go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. I appreciate that. Time is going pretty good, actually. I'm surprised we're carrying on as fast as we have this evening. First thing I want to mention, Your Worship, was the Mayor's Outlook luncheon that you did a few weeks ago, and over a week ago, and what a great job. And I wanted to mention that the Economic Development Committee meets regularly with the Chamber, and you, Your Worship, usually attend, as you did at the last meeting that we had just
met
a week
them this
ago.
week, actually.
We met them,
last week.
Week, and it's great that the Chamber comes and meets with us on a regular basis, and actually we're planning the next meeting now. It's going to be at Admiralty House, because the Chamber has moved to Admiralty House, and great to see them all settled in over there, and we'll look forward to meeting with them on a regular basis again, and it's great to see the Chamber doing great work within our city. Also, Your Worship, I wanted to mention the Seniors' Independence. Of course, the seniors, when I look every couple of weeks or every month, I get an email saying on the activities that the Seniors' Independence are doing, and every single day they have activities. The next, I guess, one of the main activities they have is going to be on the 13th for St. Patrick's Day dinner down at Park Place. But anybody in the city who's looking to do something, especially if they're 55 plus, there's no reason why they have to be home by themselves when there's so many different activities on the go here in the city of Mount Pearl. And the Seniors' Independence has over 300 seniors actively involved in these activities, and want to encourage other seniors to get out and take part in activities such as this, Your Worship, as well. Also, Your Worship, I attended the AAA Bantam Hockey and Brock Readings on behalf of the city. There were 6 teams at the Glacier in the height of the storm a couple of weeks ago, and because I thought it would have been the first, especially the opening game, would have been cancelled, but no, they went ahead in the midst of the storm, and I got to say, the fans and the excitement up there was quite exciting. St. John's ended up winning the tournament, and I want to say congratulations to all the volunteers who took part in that, because none of this stuff happens without volunteerism. And speaking of volunteerism, we talked about the Citizen of the Year, and of course next month we will be asking residents to put names of residents forward. It can be a group or it can be an individual who's put an awful lot into the community. It can be over 2012 or somebody who volunteered over a long period of time with the city. So we encourage people. It's through the Kinsman and, of course, in conjunction with community services, but I certainly would like to see 20 people nominated this year for Citizen of the Year, because it's not just the nomination and winning, it's the groups putting your name forward in the recognition. And I wanted to recognize Richard Lavanier today. Richard and his wife Deidre has put an awful lot into the city of Mount Pearl, and I was so delighted to see him getting the Queen's Jubilee Medal. And that's it for me, Your Worship.
Thank you very much. Councillor Walsh.
Thank you, Your Worship. I wasn't sure what direction you're going, but this does make a little bit of sense. I guess, we don't always necessarily have to go that way, but this is good today. I want to mention a couple of things. I'll really focus on one thing, Your Worship. At budget time every year, we're usually in the mode, particularly in the first go-arounds of our budget, where we're trying to find literally millions and millions of dollars to cut. This year, and this was something again that sort of underscores a reference that Councillor Stoyles has made. As part of your Mayor's Outlook address this year, you did take the time, and of course it was with a business audience here, to highlight the fact that we did, at a time of cutting and some fiscal restraint and trying to maintain a lower than the usual mill rate to try to reflect, I guess, some of the assessed values that were taking place in the city, we did make a huge commitment. That commitment was for $5 million, and it may need to be more, but $5 million committed at this time to the Donovan's Business Park area. And I just want to speak to that for a minute, because I think that is a very, very important, a tremendously important commitment on the part of Council. The plan is being developed to address a number of different issues, and I know that our director is in the process now of working with our committee, Public Works, also with engineering, and will probably be working with community services and a number of other committees like planning to actually make this happen. So it will be a diverse and multi-dimensional kind of project. Some of the things that we're looking at doing, and I think most of us recognize, and that's why we wanted to infuse this additional money into Donovan's, is the fact that we do need to expedite the timetable for paving in Donovan's. Instead of whatever number of years streets would be, we want to try to decrease the number of years that we'd schedule paving. There are some streets that are there right now. In fact, I drove through it on Saturday from almost one end to it to the other. And the streets like Glencoe, for example, are badly in need of a final surface. And I just want to tell the public and tell business operators and remind Council that immediately in the spring we're going to be getting to Glencoe. That's going to be one of the first streets that's going to be resurfaced. But there's more than just pavement. We're talking about signage, nice, new, modern, very clear signage, beautification of the business park. That would include things like planters and improvements to our intersections. We'd like to be able to look at the sidewalks and the access to sidewalks, particularly to our open space areas, so that people, these 15,000 people that work in Mount Pearl, can have access to our open spaces, to our green spaces, and get out at lunchtime and enjoy what we have to offer here in Mount Pearl. So we're really trying to make it more user-friendly for both the employees as well as for the business investors themselves. We really committed, as all of us are fully aware, during the budget deliberations, that doing whatever we have to do to make Donovan's Business Park the premier business park in Newfoundland and Labrador. To maintain that, it's already the largest, it's already the best, and we want to make sure that we infuse money into that so that it can maintain that status for many, many years to come. I wanted to mention that because I think it's a really important initiative. Thank you very much for allowing me to do that.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Ledwell.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just wanted to very quickly highlight a couple of projects that the Mount Pearl Lions Club is going to be undertaking in the next couple of weeks or so. Of course, President Chess Pike was here with us this evening as part of the kickoff to the Waterford River Cleanup Blitz, and we're certainly very happy to have them involved with that cleanup blitz. But a couple of projects that the club is undertaking in the next couple of weeks to raise some funds for a number of the different initiatives that they're involved with, be it the Lion Mac Sims Memorial Camp or any number of charities that they give to during the course of the year. On Saturday morning, March 9th, from 8 to 11 at Park Place, they're hosting a pancake breakfast, sausages, pancakes, bologna. The tickets are $6 for adults and $4 for children, and of course all of the proceeds are going towards all of the different charities that the Lions are so involved with. This Saturday, March 9th, coming up, yeah. Tickets are available by calling 782-7453 or certainly by contacting any member of the Lions Club themselves.
Well, you've been contacted.
Absolutely.
Get us tickets.
We will get you tickets.
We're all going to breakfast Saturday, guys.
Indeed. Indeed.
Councillor Ledwell's taking us to breakfast.
You didn't say that.
I didn't quite say that, but
that's what I heard.
Sounds good. I'm
very
generous
man.
Absolutely. And then on March 16th, I'm going to take you to a dance.
Oh, well, I know about that one too.
Yeah. Park Place, March 16th, starting at 8:30 p.m. Tickets are $10 single. It's a St. Patrick's Day dance sponsored by the Lions Club, and there'll be prizes for your best St. Patrick's Day costume. So if you're coming, you're going to have to wear green. You're going to have to dress up.
We can do that.
Green team. There
Green
you go.
Team thing. There you you go.
Okay, that's it
Thank
for
you,
me.
sir.
Thank you, Worship.
Thank you very much. Councillor Aker.
Thank you, Your Worship. I also wanted to acknowledge Richard Levanier, and in true Richard style, he's been a stalwart of the community, ever the best, one of the best volunteers the city has produced. And when he got up to receive his award, the first thing he thought about was encouraging other people to volunteer, right? You know what I mean? So my hat's off to him. If I could emulate and be like Richard Levanier, the world would be a much better place. He is very much a champion of volunteerism in this community. I'd also like, Your Worship, if we could write a letter of condolence. One of the city's employees, Mary Houlihan, her father, his name is George Whittle. He passed away this morning. He's been sick for a while. He's a veteran of the Canadian Armed Forces. And Mary, who's our employee, works in the planning department along with Stefan. She's really been a stalwart employee for us, and I just want to recognize the great loss that family has incurred. And if we could pass on our condolences, Your Worship, would be much appreciated. Yesterday, I got numerous calls about flooding, although I don't think we had too many basements that were overflown. But I want to commend the Public Works Department. We did have quite a bit of water come down the Waterford River. It was dammed up basically at the bridge there by Mary Queen of the World over by Forest Avenue. And it was like a lake there, although I did notice there was no properties that were flooded. But then further down the road, you could see the river was charging, and it was right up to the bridge. Although Director Antle points out to me that he's seen it worse, and gladly it wasn't worse. But we had a lot of sewer overflows, and the staff were really monitored it the whole day, and basically they put up cones and whatnot to warn people that there may be excess water. So fine job done by everybody. And the last thing I want to mention, I had a call from a resident, Michelle Wilkins, who lives over on O'Flaherty, and she wanted me to pass on to council. She's concerned about speeding, and I know O'Flaherty is not really a big, long street. Her point was, this time of the year, it's winter. She doesn't get a chance to take the dog for a walk on the trail. She's on the road. She would like council to consider maybe another speed limit sign up up that way, or possibly we could have a look at putting up the traffic camera, which we don't normally do, I don't think, in winter. You know what I mean? But I want to pass that on if I could refer that to the committee on her behalf. Thank you. That's it, Your Worship. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Tessier.
To that point, Councillor Aker will certainly notify our municipal enforcement to increase patrols in O'Flaherty. I'm not quite sure why everybody's in such a rush to get to places, especially in residential areas. It's quite dangerous. A couple of good news items. The Mount Pearl Marlins, of course, are making us very, very proud again. They participated in the Speedo Eastern Canadian Nationals in Montreal in February from the 14th to the 17th. They were represented by 4 of the province's top swimmers. Our swimmers had great results, achieving personal best times and improving their rankings. Gavin Dyke, understand the accomplishments of this young man. He was the highest point winner from the Marlins and achieved the senior national standard, which now qualifies him to attend the World Champion Trials in Victoria, British Columbia this April. I'm not sure if we've had another Marlin do that. We may have, we may not have, but that's a pretty big accomplishment.
That's pretty good.
I always think back to when Gavin first started. I remember my kids were swimming when Gavin first started swimming, and boy, I tell you, he's like a dart in the water now. It's amazing. Leslie Marie Lahey and Becca Dyer also had a great competition, and they hold strong in their places at the top in all female freestyle races in Newfoundland and Labrador this season.
Wow.
And the Marlins team was rounded out by Sam Leewood, who attended the competition for the first time. He had two personal bests and now ranks 4th in the province for his 50 and 100 free and 5th in his 200 free. So tell me that these folks are not going to utilize our new pool once it's built, and how glad they're going to be about that. The Mount Pearl Marlins also had 16 swimmers attend the East Coast Short Course Champs in Halifax, and they're delighted with the results of placing 7th out of 31 clubs. So the Marlins were the 7th ranking club out of 31 in the East Coast Champs. This is a short course champs. And of course also had a number of personal bests and final swims. And of course the Swim for Hope is coming up this Friday on March 8th. I'm sure that members of council are going to be down there, and of course members of the community are welcome to drop by. I think that they're going to have, is it a cardboard boat race? A cardboard boat race? Yeah, from 6:30 to 7:30 happening in the pool.
I think we're going down. I think we're going down to watch it.
Well, I'd say some people might actually be in one.
I'll be there watching.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's, but of course, the Marlins, I mean, the purpose of this Swim for Hope is to support the tremendous efforts of the H. Bliss Cancer Care Foundation. And the Marlins have been doing this for years and years, so we're really, really proud of them for participating in this event as well. And the short course provincial champs are from March the 15th to the 17th in Deer Lake, and I'm sure we're going to hear about how well they did with that. Also, we want to extend congratulations to Campion Gymnastics, to their gymnasts and their coaches who participated in the 2013 Flight Invitational in Gander on March 2nd. They had a wonderful competition again, many first to sixth place finishes and special awards presentations. So we want to thank the athletes and the coaches, of course, for their hard work and dedication with the gymnasts at Campia here in Mount Pearl. And one other item. On days like this, you know, the past couple of days have been pretty mild, pretty wet. Sidewalks are cleared now. You know, that layer of snow that's left in your driveway, the layer of snow that's left on your sidewalk, that's gone. And I know that a lot of people feel the temptation to start shoveling off that big mound of snow on their lawn. And we want to make sure, we want to remind residents again, you can't do that.
Don't do that.
You can't shovel it off onto the sidewalks. It's going to, I know our city crews do such a great job clearing our sidewalks. The last thing that we need now is for people to, you know, want to rush the spring thaw. I mean, everybody wants to see it gone, there's no doubt. And we have this year particularly higher piles of snow on our front lawns than we've had in previous years recently. But it's really important that people recognize you cannot take advantage of that bare sidewalk or the bare streets by shoveling your snow out with the anticipation that it will melt fairly quickly, because sometimes it does not, and it does impede pedestrian traffic. It certainly can cause some challenges for vehicles as well on the street. So we want to remind residents again, you can't do that. I believe it might be ticketable, is it not? Yes, it's a ticketable offense. So it's very important that people recognize that. I know that the temptation is there when the weather is more mild and when you've got that bare concrete and that bare street looking at you. Very, very tempting, but we have to remind people that you just cannot do it.
Okay, thank you. Deputy Mayor.
We're in a hurry to get rid of all that snow, Your Worship.
We are indeed.
Getting back to the Swim for Hope, I thought we had a council team going in to build a boat. I was going to speak with Mr. Antle and see if we can't get some of his engineering expertise as to how to best design a boat out of tuck tape and cardboard, I think. So, yeah, I think the expectation is that some of us may participate.
Guys, this is very high-priced help.
Pardon me?
This is very high-priced help.
We'll have a chat after the meeting.
Duct tape and cardboard, really?
Yeah.
At that rate?
Yeah. Well,
I'm
just
coming
watch?
down. Quite frankly, I'm going to be interested to see how many of you drown.
I got my little floats. I got on my arm. So, yeah. little floats.
I'm just going to be an active audience participant.
Okay. I may participate, but we'll see. Anyways, to continue on with the good news that Councillor Tessier was speaking of with our youth and all their accomplishments. At Mount Pearl Senior High School today, they recognized two of our girls' athletic teams, indoor soccer and volleyball, and in both cases they took home the 4A, the provincial championships. So that's great news. Again, I love the celebration of the youth and all they accomplished. So again, this is one of the teams. So they went undefeated in the entire tournament. So a lot of skill and talent here, and it's just wonderful to see. So I wanted to bring that up. Also, in relation to our young people, I want to throw out a bouquet and a sincere thanks to Stefan Yevchek and the Planning Department. As you know, Your Worship, you mentioned earlier the year that the new Canadian Geography textbook that was brought in to the high school curriculum this year features the city of Mount Pearl as a great example of urban planning. We had a couple of classes from the high school come down here, and Stefan Yevchek, our director, along with Mr. Harold Fleet and Julia Swartz, took the time to put together a presentation, and they did a great job explaining to the youth the importance of urban planning and how it contributes to our quality of life. It generated a lot of discussion back in the school afterwards, so I just wanted to throw it out there to the Planning Department for taking the time to do that, and just let you know the students really did appreciate that. And also Connie came out, Fleming, and came and took some pictures for us, so just to throw that out there as well. One thing, Councillor Walsh was speaking of the industrial park, the business park, and our plans to upgrade. I've had, probably 3 or 4 people over the past couple of weeks bring up the issue of line painting, and the disappearance of line. I guess the frustration of the fact that it seems that over the years the lines aren't lasting as long as they typically did, and on those wet nights as I get older MHA Lane was talking about his eyes and stuff like that. I find it increasingly more difficult to drive, first in the nighttime, but on these wet nights when you got the glare on the pavement, and then, of course, you don't have any discernible lines on the road. But I reassured the residents that it's not just a Mount Pearl issue, but they did highlight the lines that were up at the intersection that we did as a pilot. The thermoplast, I think, that we put on there, and they clear a few spots that have been torn up, I think, by some of the snow clearing, perhaps, but they are still quite visible, and in the nighttime. So they were wondering. I'll throw this out to the committee, perhaps a little update to see, your assessment on that when you're going to do an assessment for the lines, and to see if perhaps there's some other areas in the city that we could probably use that technology, because again, they are much more visible than the standard lines that we've been putting down. So I just wanted to again throw that back to the committee, and maybe in future you can bring back a little assessment or report. That's it for me, Your Worship. Thank you.
Thank you very much. As a matter of fact, we had, as you know, we had the Urban Municipalities Committee hosted here in Mount Pearl last week, and we've instructed Mr. Randall, our director there, to put the package together on what we actually did with this thermoplast and this kind of thing for all of the committee members. Just to one little comment for me to let you know, Tuesday past we met with the Chamber of Commerce. It's a regular quarterly meeting with the Mount Pearl Paradise Chamber of Commerce. There were a couple of items that they brought up that were of particular interest, but one of particular interest to me, and that is the change in the occupancy tax in the city of St. John's. The Chamber is going to work with us on doing a little work in this area. The city of St. John's, as you know, did away with its business tax, and ultimately that's pretty amazing when you think about it. They've gone to a complete occupancy tax. They've had their business community sign on to it, apparently 100%, and it is considered to be much more progressive as a tax system, much easier to administer for the municipality as a tax system, and we are one of the last holdouts as a province that has not gone with this new taxing infrastructure. To that end, we had the Urban Municipalities Group here on Thursday. They were very interested in this, and we had a presentation by the City of St. John's on how they did it, what they did, and what the downstream consequences, both positive and negative, were. This is something I think it's fair to say the City of Mount Pearl, because of our industrial business mix, which is much more reflective of urban reality than some of the business mix you'll see in more rural parts of the province. I think you're going to find us moving down this road. It was important, though, that we do it in lockstep with our Chamber of Commerce. So they're working on this with us, and I'm anticipating that we're going to have a report for you in the next couple of months that I think Council will find intriguing, okay, on that one particular note. That having been said, I have no other announcements to make at this point in time. I am going to entertain a motion to adjourn. Moved by Councillor Ledwell. We stand adjourned. Thank you, everybody.